a hotel that was closed down because the entire hotel was a huge crack house. It was disgusting. It was enraging. You know, you come home and you'd like to be able to go home and feel safe, but you don't know what idiot crackhead is walking around your place, screwing around your backyard. You're hearing things all night long. Okay, so I don't think it needs to be explained or driven home to me how horrible and destructive these drugs are, not only to the users, and those are the people I care less about, are the people that are ruining their own lives.
Right.
When they go out and they start hurting other people. However, to me, the real question we have to ask is, do we want to try and really eliminate these things by increasingly removing our civil rights away and telling people that they are not responsible for themselves? You are not responsible for your actions because you're on a drug. So we, Big Brother, is going to say to you, no, now you're not going to use this drug. We are going to take it from you because you're a child in society. You are beholden to the state. You are now a ward of the state. Your body belongs to the state. To me, that's really the slope we're on. And it's not that I'm trying to advocate these things at all. I'm really not. Trust me. I'm not on drugs now. I don't believe in them. But I'm simply saying I don't want to relinquish my rights to the state. Right. I would rather be a free man in a dangerous society than a slave in a utopia.
John, I'm delighted that you explained yourself, because now he's against drugs and all that, except the idea, the main thing, and that's it's very American, it's a constitutional right he is questioning. His personal civil liberties.
My freedom.
Your freedom. So
you know, I have a little bit of problem with that because of the fact that I think we have to live in a community and live with one another, and I think that if everybody could stay in their own little cabin and do whatever they want to do and stay within their own family ties, but what happens is society gets involved, we go out in the community, what we do affects other people, it affects our national health policy, it affects our state policies, it affects the well-being of other people that live by us, and I think with that in mind, if that's the case, we want to just be able to sit in our own little cottage and do what we want to do with our life. Obviously, I believe that's the person's right, but if we're going to have any interaction at all, Michael, with anybody in the community, we have to have the regards of other people. And there's a lot of people in the society that can't fend for themselves and can't make those decisions for themselves. Maybe either intellectually they can't make them, maybe they're a youth that is impressionable, and I think that someone has to stick up with those people and let them know that there's people on their side and willing to come to their aid when they need help also. And it may be just in the form of instruction on drug abuse and alcohol abuse, and that's why, of course, in my past days, and I still am an advocate for the educational program in our elementary schools, the DARE program. That's a national program. I think it's an excellent program for children to at least become aware of their surroundings. They still make up their mind later to do what they want to do with their body. That's their prerogative. But if it entails harming other people in society, increasing our health costs because of overdose and stuff, and society having to support them in our hospitals, then I say that we have to have some way to regulate them, and obviously we got to put a stop to it. That's exactly the point that I'm addressing, though. I don't believe in supporting people. I'm not an advocate of welfare. I'm not an advocate of the public health system. I'm very much against any kind of nationalized health care. I'm not for people I believe, look, if you want to put mess in your arms. I've watched the prostitutes, seen what's happened to them. They know what they're doing to themselves. I'm not for those people getting ruined, then coming into a hospital, 5 years down the road, 3 years down the road, however long it takes them to ruin their lives and say, okay, now hook me up to a $500,000 machine for the next 6 months until I die. No. I say you want to play the game, play it and die. If you want to be straight and you want to live and you want to do something productive with your life, okay, do it. Now, as far you brought up another point that I have to address. You were saying, if we could live in like a little cubicle, and you were saying you don't have a problem with people taking drugs within their own homes. You almost implied it, at least in what you just said. Well, I didn't say that, and I do not mean that. Okay, so I don't want to put words in your mouth. Please don't. I don't think that's what you intended to say. That isn't what I meant. Okay, but I am not for public intoxication when it becomes abusive to other people or harmful to other people, and I'm not for public intoxication of any kind, whether it be drugs or whatever, or driving under the influence or anything like that. But what I am saying is I think it should be up to the individual. They should be held accountable, be responsible for their actions,
And I understand the police, and being a police officer, I know you've had to deal with people whacked out on drugs. You've had a hard time. You've gone up to people wondering, oh God, is this guy going to go crazy on me? So I can understand your position that you've got to deal with that. But I think part of the problem is we've been sending a message for the past 20 years, since the Great Society and LBJ, you're a little ward of the state. I think that's really the primary problem that I'm addressing. It's more pervasive than just drugs. I think this is more of a symptom of a deeper problem, which is people abandoning responsibility. And I think that's really what we have to get back to is, do we want to be a society that believes in individual responsibility, or do we want to be a society that believes that the state should control our actions?
Okay, John, Scott, I'm going to get to you, but I see two things. One, he is talking about responsibility not only towards yourself, but towards society, as long as we live in a community. So we have that. And this is how you're going to balance one against the other, I suppose.
I think the balances should be carried out in the courts and adjudication of differences the way the Constitution set out.
All right, Scott?
Yes, I do believe that there are limits on what is acceptable behavior. I'm not an anarchist. I don't condone just going off and doing anything. Since we live in a society together, there are certain rules that should put limits on the behavior of people because their behavior can affect other people. When a person's behavior is an imposition, a coercive imposition on someone else's life, then that behavior needs to be restricted. Likewise, if the government's behavior is a coercive imposition on someone else's life, that behavior must be limited. That is why we have a Bill of Rights that limit the government. And it was well conceived to put it there. So if a person is using drugs within their own home or selling them within their own home or in a business inside a storefront or such an environment, and people who are not going to be driving away or who are not pregnant and are consenting adults wish to participate in that activity, that is their right. I'm not saying they should participate in that activity. I'm pro-choice, no more than I would suggest everyone get pregnant so they could have an abortion. But if a person wishes to have an abortion, that is still their right. Likewise, a person has the right to do other things to their own body as long as they're not a threat to other individuals. So yes, I agree with the representative. We do need restrictions on people's behavior, but when that restriction isn't to protect people from misbehavior, but rather to control people because other people don't like the way this other person wants to be, then we're stepping on dangerous ground. Next thing, maybe it's a religion that people don't like, perhaps like the Branch Davidians, and so the state goes after them. Or the Rastafarians. Their religion actually involves the consumption of a substance that's illegal, marijuana. The state goes after them.
All right.
Once you make your limit on behavior something more than just protecting people from other people's behavior and make it into a means of what is popular behavior, let's force popular behavior down people's throats, that's a very dangerous thing.
Okay. Do you want to respond to this?
Yeah, I have a little problem comparing this to the Branch Davidians because obviously I have a personal feeling that the government didn't go after them because of their religion. My own personal opinion. I think there's more to it than that. But I truly believe that we also must work with one another, whatever our backgrounds are. And I think in any occupation, if we're going to have a workforce that's willing to be productive and creative, I think we have to be able to come to work under a work program that we're not under the influence of any type of controlled substance, whether it be drugs or any other type of narcotics, because I truly do believe that my opinion is that marijuana doesn't necessarily lead to, a person that's used marijuana may not always have to go to a higher type or more extensive drug. But in my past experience as a narcotics officer for many years also working in that field, every single person I talked to that was now a heroin user, used any kind of controlled substance such as crack, cocaine, all had at one time started out using marijuana. Very seldom did anybody go to a $30, $40 hit of crack cocaine. They start out with a marijuana cigarette of some type and branched off through there, if you may. But I'm not saying everybody that smoked marijuana also goes to a higher type drug, but everybody that's used a more controlled substance they all start out on marijuana at one time or another.
Most of them also smoke cigarettes and alcohol too. I mean, I think that's kind of that's a moot point. You could argue that one forever. It's not something that's really, we can't sit here and say that's a for sure one way or the other. I mean, I think really my whole position, just to stick with it, simply put, is that we're either going to believe in a society that has individual responsibility as its highest standard, or we are wards of the state. When you say a business, we have a right to have people be productive, that what the state has a right that people should be more productive for the state, or a businessman has the right to hire or fire whomever he pleases. Unfortunately, in this country, and I would be for changing this too, I think a businessman should be able to hire and fire whoever he likes. I don't care for what reason. I've not been hired because they didn't like the way I looked. And that's fine. I never complained to anyone. I said, hey, he didn't like me. The guy just didn't like me. I was too headstrong. I was blah, blah, blah. My hair was too long. He didn't like my beard. Okay, that's his business. That's his business. And I've never complained about it. If he doesn't like what I do on my off hours, if he wants to personally run a drug test and that's a provision of his job, I've got no problem with it. Private business. When I have a problem with it is when the state says you've got to do this. That's my problem. It's not a problem with any private businessman or even in a private corporate community saying we want to set this community standard. When you're saying community standards, I have to agree with you. I think it's okay for a community to say, look, we're going to have a strict law like there's dry counties down south. For the same thing here. If you get caught with a joint in this community or whatever, if they want to make it a dry county, hey, that's their business. Like Oakland County, they've got very strict drug laws. Hey, if you're a drug dealer, don't go into Oakland County, baby. You know, that's the reality, and that's their business.
Are you okaying that? I mean, if the county decides, as a community comes to a decision.
That's fine.
That's okay.
But I'm against it at the federal level. See, I'm very much against the federalist.
That's unusual there. I mean, it's the same
Yeah, I'm a little
principle,
confused on this, but that's okay.
But as long as I'm surprised that he says a county can decide as a community, I guess, come to a conclusion to have a dry area or whatever.
I don't have a problem with. I never used to take beer through Kentucky, through Milford County, down in Kentucky, because I knew if I got pulled over in Milford County with a beer, that was it for me. I was a young guy. Spending time, man.
Oakland County has a ban on drugs, and
that's their business.
So I guess I don't see the analogy, but that's my point. If it's illegal, the laws are made by the people, and for the people in the best interest of all as majority. Those are the laws that I think it should be upheld. And if they're not, then we should change those laws.
I'm primarily against the federal laws. You see, that's where I have a problem, is the federal statutes, because the federal statutes are created. If you just look at the gerrymandering, I have a big problem with the whole federal system. I'm not a federalist. I'm a Jeffersonian. So you probably would see I have a big problem with a lot of federal laws. And this is where my whole main attack is. I'm arguing against drug illegalization on a moral, constitutional level, but of course that's only federal. Because anything that the Constitution doesn't address is deferred to the state. For states to do what they want, well, that's up to the state.
So, Scott, what's the proposal? What kind of a proposition are you doing? To change what?
I'm in favor of legalizing substances for use, sale, and possession by any consenting adults as long as they do not interfere with the lives of other citizens.
Well, so, interfere, you mean negatively?
Coercively interfere with the lives of other citizens.
And, okay, you are basing this on a certain principle, right?
The sovereignty of the individual is the principle I'm basing it on.
Now, suppose we pass that, on that principle. What would you see coming? Would the health of society improve or degrade?
It'd probably improve for some and degrade for others. What I do not see happening is that suddenly everyone goes, oh, you mean now this is legal? Gee, let's go try heroin. I don't see that happening. What I see happening is that there might be some people who, I mean, it's a rare case where someone who would actually say, oh, gee, I want to try this, but it's illegal, so I won't, might go and do it. I don't know such people. Most people, they're like, no, I know that's bad, I'm not going to do that, and it's also illegal. And so I think most people would continue in the lifestyle that they have currently. If a person wants to find drugs right now, they can find them. And so it's not going to suddenly make something available that was never available before. I made, as an example of just a limited example. I was in Holland recently.
Europe.
Yes.
Holland.
In
Europe.
Holland, under 30 grams of marijuana is not illegal to possess, and it's legal to smoke as long as you are indoors in a place that, a business that allows you to smoke it there, as long as you're not outside. There was a lot of tourism. Certainly a lot of tourists were enjoying that laissez-faire environment. But the people of Holland, really, there has been no increase in drug use among the average citizen of Holland.
Scott, just a minute. How many seconds do I have? 30 seconds? 1 minute? Okay, we have 1 more minute, so okay, you have 30 seconds. And
Yeah.
I'll give you 30 seconds to you. Okay? Go ahead.
And so what I'm saying is there have been places where re-legalization has been tried on a limited basis, and it has not been disastrous, except in cases where the government actually subsidizes the drug, as has happened in England, where they actually gave people free heroin. Then what happens, of course, when you make something free, is it becomes more attractive for people to
be
do.
equal time on both sides.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I can't agree with what Scott and John say, only because I believe that we have to have laws of the state, of the nation, that protect us all as a uniform group. And therefore, I think that we have to have stringent laws that deal with these type of offenses of controlled substances, the use of and the sale of, and whether they be in privacy of their own home or not. I have a little problem because that privacy begins to enlarge over the course of time, and the kids take it to school, they sneak it out to school. It's just like other things that gets out in the community. If we could guarantee that, and I think it's an impossibility, people might address that more readily, but I don't see how that just a use in the privacy of your home that it would ever come about as a good policy.
And on that note, we are going to conclude our program. As I said, it was emotional and controversial. I am with our state representative, Dave Galloway, and yet I admire the rebellious and independent and civil right-minded youngsters who are born and raised in America. So good night till next time. Join us again next Monday.
Good job, guys.
Very nice
Just
job.
a very entertaining.
You were I'm glad I put you. Great. This was John, you were way
Such a qualified person of the opposing point of view coming.
I think this was the most interesting discussion. I mean, nothing was written, everything was so natural, and I mean, maybe we should have another one. Can we stay another hour and have a part 2?
I wish I could. I have to go play.
I know. We have to close. I'm just kidding. Honest to God.